All right, we've got a bunch of awesome Nintendo Switch and RPG news to go over, so I'm excited to talk about it. Unicorn Overlord, potentially a sequel that's coming. Stellar Blade, we all know that's coming out this month in April, but there's more when it comes to Shift Up and a new AAA action RPG that they are looking to make. Disgaea news is back in, and a big Nintendo Switch first-party game continues its dominance in Japan, along with that system that's going on 8 years old now. So we're going to get into all of that and more. But before we do, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my vids first. Now let's go ahead and jump right into some Unicorn Overlord action. Now, the developers over at Vanillaware have confirmed that they are not planning any type of DLC for Unicorn Overlord. This is something that a lot of my users have been asking me about on Twitter. People are now starting to finish up the game. People are asking me this on my live streams, and no, there will be no DLC plans. The game is packed full of content. You can spend upward of 100 hours into the game. There's multiple different endings. There's a bunch of different characters to recruit. There's a lot of side content. There's just a ton of stuff to do. It's a complete game from front to back, and most people are pretty happy with what they have offered in the base package. And I think personally that if you get everything in terms of your ideas and stuff that you want done for that game and the stories you want to tell specifically for that individual game, there is no need to try to tack on DLC or something extra. It reminds me a lot of Platinum Games titles where most of the time, yeah, they have a bigger story that they want to tell, but everything that's going to be in the game with Bayonetta, for example, is in the game. Same thing with Beautiful Joe back when they were Clover, or same thing with DMC games back when Hideki Kamiya did that. You can do DLC, it would be awesome, but at the same time, everything that you need is right in the game, and even extra content that unlocks once you unlock certain situations or once you do certain things. Platinum Games Astral Chain, for example, once you beat the game, a bunch of extra cases that are really difficult get unlocked. So that's the type of stuff that I like to see. Vanillaware, Atlas, they did a bang up job with Unicorn Overlord, and I don't expect there to be any DLC even before they talked about this, considering how the game was and how much content was in the game. And while there might not be DLC, they have not shut the door on a potential sequel. Now, in a recent survey, there was a question that was asked to fans of Unicorn Overlord. Do you plan on purchasing any sequels to Unicorn Overlord if they were to be made? So right there, they're already gauging interest for a potential sequel. Now, one thing with Vanillaware, guys, is that they don't do sequels a ton. If you look at their games over the last 10 to 15 years, you have Odin Sphere, you have Dragon's Crown, you've got Miramosa the Demon Blade, which is a little bit further than that. And really, they don't do a lot of sequels. 13 Sentinels, they just don't. They usually move on to the next thing. The carryover is the cool art style, the hand-drawn, the visuals, the music. A lot of that stuff carries over. Not the same, but in the Vanillaware style, depending on what game you are playing and the tone and the style of that game. So people really enjoy that about Vanillaware. But I do think Unicorn Overlord is a game that has sold over 500,000 copies in about a month's time. Like, they have been doing really good with this game. So I do think that's probably the fastest that they've ever sold the game before. So people might want to see another Unicorn Overlord, so a Unicorn Overlord 2. And I feel that if they were to do that, obviously you'd have to have a lot of new stuff, a lot of different things. And of course, Vanillaware can finally have some, I would say, stability when it comes to what they want to do. They can take what they usually use in terms of models or assets, they can kind of repurpose those, which they do or which they have, but this time it'd be different since you're making a sequel and not something completely new from scratch and everything. So I think that would actually optimize what Vanillaware could do, because usually they have to take a lot of time to make their games because they're creating something completely brand new, which is why there's such big gaps in between their games. but I do think that this might be a good opportunity for them. Now, in a live stream recently, I was like, I don't know if they're going to do a sequel just because they don't ever do sequels, but I think that this one, with the sales and with the content and what they could do with the stories and how they could advance the story with this game in particular, I think that a sequel might work here if they were up for it, and if they feel that it would be a good thing to do. Now, they did run out of money while they were developing this game, so a sequel would be a safe bet for Atlus and everyone, and people can kind of just get into the franchise that type of way. So you don't want to run out of money creating something new again, so I think a sequel might be the safe bet, at least to stabilize them a little bit more, and then maybe they can create something new after that. But speaking of creating something new, let's talk about the Stellar Blade developer Shift Up and how they are hiring for a brand new AAA sci-fi action RPG. Let's go. So Stellar Blade developer Shift Up, VGChartz writes, is hiring for a new game that is described as a AAA urban science fiction action RPG. I love that sound to it. It has just like great tone to it and everything. This is according to the company's new project page. The game will be a quote cross-platform next-gen project and is built using Unreal Engine. The job listing reveals it will also feature monsters and creatures. That's good to know. You need monsters and creatures. Now, Shift Up is hiring for a programmer, technical artist, monster concept artist, character concept artist, and animator, and designer, scenario writer that will work on the unannounced game. I actually want to talk about this a little bit more because Shift Up is making a name for themselves with Stellar Blade. I played the demo, and while some people tried to stupidly compare it to Bayonetta, which it's not, it's definitely more like a Souls game. It feels like that. It feels, when it comes to the combat, it's got the Z targeting system like most Souls games do. It has the more slower pace style of combat, very methodical, and then what you see in terms of the action parts, or like the high speed parts, are the finishing moves that Eve can do. But the sword swings, the air combos, and all of that play nothing like Bayonetta, play nothing like Devil May Cry, play nothing like the original God of War trilogy, those type of stylish or high flying action games. This is far more grounded, more deliberate, and absolutely feels like a Sekiro or Souls game when it comes to some of the pairing systems and things that you can do. Maybe even a little bit of God of War 2018, God of War Ragnarok, that type of game. But it's a mix of all of those. Lies of P, just games like that. So take all of those type of games and kind of mash them up. But definitely a Soulsborne game was the type of flow and feel they were going for. You even have like your bonfires, which are your campsites, and you have your regenerating health things that start at 3, your flasks per se. So I do think that it's far more like a Souls game than anything like Bayonetta. So people that like Bayonetta or DMC or old school God of War are probably not going to like this as much as people who like Elden Ring and who like Lies of P and who like Bloodborne and Dark Souls and Demon Souls and those type of games. It's more on that side. And I'm not an Elden Ring fan. I am not a Soulsborne fan, but this game has me intrigued in terms of what it does with the combat and the character and the setting and everything. I do feel like I'm going to like this one based off of what I played from the demo, and it's more of a focused adventure experience. It doesn't have all this confusing world design from what I've seen, and it controls just good enough. I think that there is some input delay that causes some problems for myself, not because I can't play the game well, because I can. I beat the boss multiple times and I beat it pretty easily when it comes down to that little extra boss that you can fight. But I do think that there's just some input delay when you try to do your action. So hopefully they can fix that before the launch. I did know that the producer said like, hey, you got to put your TV to game mode. I have an LG CX and I'm definitely in game mode. I have really good response timing. There's still just a bit of that input delay whenever you're trying to do blocks or when you're attacking or when you're dodging. So it's just not quite as fluid as some of the other big action games like Bayonetta or DMC. but I do think that it is going to be a solid experience for people out there, and especially for those looking for something that's a little bit of an offshoot from the Soulsborne type of game. Has those mechanics, but then also other things as well. So Stellar Blade developer, Stellar Blade itself looking good, and they're getting ready for that next AAA action RPG, so that's good to see. But speaking of getting ready, we've got Disgaea 7 Complete that's getting ready to launch this year across the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and the Nintendo Switch. It was announced recently, and it's due out on July 25th in Japan, so you could expect a Western release shortly after that. So Nippon Ichi Software has announced Disgaea 7 Koromade no Zenbru Iri Hajimashita, a bundle edition of Disgaea 7 Vows of the Virtueless that includes all previously released downloadable content and bonus items, as well as an additional bonus story and new gameplay elements that will also be made available for the base game. It will launch for the PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, and the Nintendo Switch on July 25th in Japan for 5,980 yen. A Western release has yet to be announced, but it will likely be titled Disgaea 7 Complete, given the past Disgaea releases. So definitely good to see a complete edition of Disgaea 7. This was one of the best rated Disgaea games of all time, and absolutely one of the ones that had the most packed in terms of content and things to do in the base game. Now you're getting the complete version that has all the DLC, that has everything there, and has one of the better protagonists as well. I did stream the game myself, and I'm not a massive Disgaea fan, but I did have some fun playing through the game. It's a cool strategy RPG, so if you like Fire Emblem and that style of game, then Disgaea 7 could be a game that you can get into. And yes, you get the full version of this here with everything, so it'd probably be a good time to jump in if you wanted to get into the Disgaea franchise, but we'll have to wait for that Western confirmation. But let's go ahead and move into the next topic here, guys, and we're going to be discussing the Famitsu sales. Princess Peach Showtime is once again at the top of the sales charts, and the Nintendo Switch somehow still keeps selling. So Gematsu writes that Famitsu has published its estimated physical game software data for Japan for the week of March 25th, 2024 through March 31st, 2024. Princess Peach Showtime has remained the highest selling game of the week following its debut the previous week, moving an additional 27,258 retail units. It was followed by Rise of the Ronin for the PS5, which moved an additional 20,139 units. Then you had Winning Post 10 at 2024, which was the only new release in the top 10, moving 12,845 units on the Nintendo Switch, another 6,733 units on the PlayStation 5, for a total of 19,578 units, not including the PS4 version, which didn't chart. When it comes to the hardware sales, the Nintendo Switch was top once again by a good amount, selling 57,533 units compared to the 20,846 units for the PS5 and the 1,376 units for the Xbox series of systems. And somehow the eternal PlayStation 4 sells 679 units. Let's go for everybody buying PS4s out there in Japan. The top 10, pretty much the same usual suspects here, although Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is completely out of the top 10. I don't know if it was there last week or not, but it's completely out of the top 10. You're seeing a lot of the returning games, stuff like Animal Crossing, Splatoon, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, games like that, Super Mario Bros. Wonder. But it's cool to see that Princess Peach Showtime didn't completely drop off the face of the earth after its first reveal. 27,000 units, not necessarily incredibly high for a second week, but not bad, with the game already going over 104,000 units, not including digital sales, and none of these sales do include digital when it comes down to the software. Hardware wise, it's just crazy to think that Nintendo Switch still at this point, past its 7th year, going into its 8th year, can still consistently sell 50, 60, sometimes 70,000 units or so plus in Japan when you're not having the biggest of games coming out, essentially on the back of the old games like Splatoon 3 and Animal Crossing New Horizons and Super Mario Bros. Well, that's more of a newer one, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and Splatoon 3 are all 2 years old plus. So that definitely shows you what Nintendo needs to do for the next generation of the Switch. Make sure that you have those big heavy hitters early and often when it comes down to stuff like Mario Kart, and when it comes to the next big 2D Mario, the next big Splatoon game, the next big Animal Crossing games. These are all titles that need to be made, and make sure that you get them out and they're really good so they can continue to sell your system for years down the line. That's the important thing. Then of course the awesome marketing that you'd have to do with the system, but the games are going to be so vital to make sure that the system does well. And games like Princess Peach Showtime are great because they're not the biggest titles out there, but they're nice compact experiences that people can play, have something to look forward to play for the Nintendo Switch as they head into the next Nintendo Switch 2 system and the marketing cycle and the announcement for that. So that's going to wrap it up for this video here, guys. Thank you so much for watching today. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe if you are someone new. Click that notification bell and check out my other Nintendo Switch, RPG news, and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.